but it's what seems to be ruined megalithic stuff, right? Well, here he was showing me these pictures on Mars that look like, Puma Punku or whatever. When you look at it, it looks like sort of a ruined thing you might find under a jungle in Peru. Those lidars match up. And I start noticing, I look up and there's these giant rocks just blown into the side of this 60-foot ravine, right? That makes up this very odd triangular turn in the river. Now, this rock, when you get in there, you start to realize that's the only way to describe those markings are cut markings, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm right here in the bend of the river, guys. Just sort of you see all the rocks, man, on this side. The other side is all sand. You see, it's like a debris field.
But what do you think about this Mars disclosure community and this Mars disclosure monthly group we're thinking about starting? What do you think about all that?
Tricked me. Hello. No, so I do the Mars disclosure. I'll take your soft opening and I'll so I personally like the Mars disclosure, and I have to sort of I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but you're bringing us right back to when I first really was watching this show, Mike and Dave's Multiverse, right? Was a Gene Ward episode, man. And you and Mike and Dave and Gene Ward, and what I loved about it was I look at LiDAR. We're going to get to what I do, the antediluvian stuff, right? The big rocks here on Earth, but it's what seems to be ruined megalithic stuff, right? Well, here he was showing me these pictures on Mars that look like, Puma Punku or whatever. When you look at it, it looks like sort of a ruined thing you might find under a jungle in Peru. Those LiDARs match up.
There's lots of them.
Personally, Dave, I just dove right in. I started having fun with you guys. I remember we were bouncing around an idea about, we should start a board game. Whoever finds Atlantis on Mars, we find Atlantis on Mars before we find it on Earth.
That was a fun episode and a good little chat. And that was like right around when we first started interacting for sure, which was on X.
Yeah.
Then we became roommates for a weekend former roommates at Quest for Ancient Civilization conference. I wanted to ask, what's it like being roommates with Dave of the Multiverse, number one, number two, how was Quest for Ancient Civilization conference for Jason the Shaman Huffman?
Audience, we took a soft opening, so I'm just getting over some sort of funk, cold, flu, whatever's going around. So please excuse the coughing. Roommate, do we call it that? I took the fold out. I did. It was as intimate as an experience as you can have with a dude
for a weekend that you never met before.
Right, exactly. We were very much thrown together, obviously from chatting and whatnot. We had a pretty good idea what type dudes we were. But yeah, man, that was it. Trial by fire. We were thrown right in. So you and I have a much chummier relationship. There were responsibilities involved, being Dave. Roommate, which we won't go into.
I'll say it. Remember my keys. At one point, I had 7 keys in my pocket by the end of the weekend. 7 keys. I kept having to go to the front desk, and it was embarrassing. One time, you ran up to the front desk to get the key, and then I had to run back.
He was like, "They won't anymore with me, man. They won't."
And they really wouldn't. I was embarrassed, but it is what it is.
Let me put my shoes on. No, I think I had to go.
Time.
I had to go a couple of times myself, man. It was a long weekend, and we had the longest walk. We did. I think 4 football fields, or so away.
Like it.
So it was a constant back and forth marathon between the canteen and the room and the responsibilities that you guys had, and then just the little bit of fun in breathing room we were trying to squeeze in. But yeah, all in all, it was a blast. That lays the foundation for sure for
for a cool conversation with Jason. They call him the Shaman Huffman, co-host of the Shaman and Philosopher podcast, presented by the Institute for Natural Philosophy. Shout out Ricardo, Jacqueline, and Sarah, and the Universe Unveiled podcast. He goes by Shaman711 _ on X. And he's my friend, and I'm glad he's finally joining the multiverse to talk to us today about Antediluvian Alabama, which is very interesting idea that I've only come across from you. So I'm really excited to have you present it to me and the audience today. But first, I wanted to just ask you, just like, how did you get into, like, what was your first intro to lost ancient civilizations?
Wow. Okay. So let me see. Let's. We don't have to give a full autobiography on that one to say that, like most of us of my generation, Gen X, right, born in '79 or so. I came up, with History Channel, right, with it back in those days, and everywhere there was, hints of this thing that wasn't in these books in school, right? So I was always naturally had a mind that was piqued. Curiosity. If I was making a Dungeons and Dragons stat sheet for myself, curiosity, dude.
This is the second time Dungeons and Dragons has come up in a row on a podcast for me today. Just FYI.
Oh yeah, adds into it. It's as a kid, man, it was a lot of fun. 80s. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Imagination didn't need screens.
No, yeah.
Together, writing, using dice, and then making
sitting around a table with ice cream and chips.
Right, man. Salsa, all the good stuff, dude. And doing it all night, and just engaging. And then Lord love Atari, and Nintendo came along. And then we started doing it all night that way. But I got us off track. So let me get back to the lost civilization.
I do that all the time. I got ADHD up in here.
Well, between the two of us, look, we successfully got through some rather tense moments at that Civ conference. There were cameras, there were responsibilities, and you just kind of yanked me in. So I think we'll manage this one just fine together.
You were all over it though. You were like a roadie. Moving mics around and stuff like that, setting shit up.
Well, I was revealing what was in me, dude. I'll get back to ancient Civ, but you asked. I do have theater background, stage, what I mean by that, background, and both acting, directing. I just sort of have it. Once you got that in your blood, you know what I mean, and you're in that environment, and you see something that needs to be done. It's like a football player, who's played and trained. You're back on the field. That shit needs to be done. You look around, nobody's doing it. I better. There you go. Handle it.
That's just like Cody. He has a theater background. Shout out East 10 Outpost. But he was doing the same thing, like just making stuff happen. So that was pretty cool.
And I knew I was there. I was there with you too, dude. And that's the way you operate, right? When you're
be helpful.
Somewhere, you be helpful, right? But look, I learned. I had a dude in AA, and that's where all this started for me recently, the past, 10 years of this whole thing that is my life, dude. But in AA, and he taught me this, and he said, every day is a Super Bowl, man, and that's just an ethic where every day, especially in a situation where you're there appearing with and because of and at the behest of other people, you just bring your best self. And if your best self has theater background and there's shit that needs to be done, and somebody spills something, you grab a fucking towel.
Well, I appreciate it, and it was very helpful. And I hope you guys, the whole crew, comes to Cosmic Summit. But we'll talk about that another time. So I did ask you about how you got into this
civilization. Yeah. So listen, I went through. You don't even have to. I use shaman for a reason, right? Because if you want to look up shamanic calling, if you know anything about it, you'll know what I mean. My life went through a massive transition. Anybody who's been through 12-step programs, right, through AA, through recovery, they will be identifying with these moments I'm talking about, where you hit a rock bottom, and you come face to face with yourself, and you must then, as AA puts it, get in touch with a higher power, right? Well, I mentioned my curiosity, bro. And once I went through this program through my own volition, and I heard about conscious contact with a higher power, what?
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me. And they don't, they don't. You have to find it. And I found it, man. And I chased it, and my life sort of was falling apart, in various ways, and in various ways not, right. And I went out to the woods, man, and I got in touch with this connectedness, right, that I found with myself and with a higher power, right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the quickest way to say it. I'm trying not to make the show. There's no point, talk about this.
Did you go through 12 steps? Like
Yeah.
And you're sober from alcohol?
Yeah.
For how long?
Are we going on 8 years now? 7 years? 2018, I went to recovery. Yeah.
Congratulations. I quit in 2012, and then I kind of started again, and then you saw me a little bit I started again when I did a little bit in Scotland. Yeah. When I was with my wife, and then I had like a bottle of scotch that I brought home, and then at Quest for Ancient Civilization conference, I learned that like I can't. I stopped for a reason, and I can't. Why you quit is part of your origin story.
Well, look, it's a standard story, right? When you find yourself unable to take hold of something, right? I could not, no matter what I tried, and I'm a pretty stubborn and pretty smart individual. I could not make myself quit drinking, right? Now, there were lots of things going on in my personal life that, no, I won't touch on, right? But sticking strictly to this, I couldn't get a hold of it, dude.
Yeah.
Same. And I was holding everything together just fine. I'm what you call one of those functional ones, that unless you were close enough to smell the breath, I mean, I never drank before work. You know what I mean? It's like I held it together, right?
Right.
Until I couldn't, right? So then, I made choice to make a call, to say to a family member, to say, hey, come get me, find somewhere. I gotta go,
Yeah.
And that was it. I went to the right place. I went to a place in Warrior, Alabama. Shout out to those dudes. They know what they're doing, and they got some shamans of their own there, man.
Nice.
There's one dude that was the head of the athletics department. I mean, Nick Saban sent dudes to him. You know what I mean? To check out. And this cat, man, would take you out in the woods, a whole group of you, and he'd sit down, have you sit around him. All right, we're here for our hour and a half with you, right? What are we gonna do? And he'd just sit there and go, I'm listening. And we're sitting there going, all right, so I'm listening to my woods, see what we're going to do today. And go, okay, sure as shit. All right, he's claiming something here, right? This individual was claiming something, and I was going to see if he could fucking prove it out, right? I mean, right? So I start watching him. I start watching him go to individuals. He'd just go to them, and it was his time to speak to them, and he'd say shit to them, and they'd start crying, right? And all of a sudden, one of we're sitting around in a shed, man, and one of the individuals who had lost someone to heroin, they start talking about butterflies, right? And I'm going to get chills here. They start talking about butterflies, right, and how important they were to this person. And this man, whose name's not coming to me now, but anybody who's been to Warrior will know, he starts telling the story about one of his most emotional. He'd been doing this shit for years, right? And the lore was nobody knew how long he'd been sober. He wouldn't say anything, but since I woke up today, right? But he'd been in this shit for years, and he's telling this emotional tale about butterflies and this father who had lost a daughter due to his own drunk driving, right? And he's working with this man, right, trying to keep this man alive. You know what I'm saying? And as he's telling the story, dude, I'm telling you, fucking 15 butterflies fly into the shed. I'm not even shitting you, dude. 15 butterflies or more. I'm just grabbing a number, a flock, a fleet, whatever the word for a bunch of butterflies are.
Somebody look that up. Somebody in the comments look that up.
Right. And everyone there is sitting there just bawling, and I'm sitting there going, okay. He did listen to the woods today. He does know.
Weird.
He is listening to spirit. I call it God. It's Christian. It's easy, right? However you want to term it. But higher power is what they call it in AA. There's no name forward past that, right? Well, he listened to higher power. So when I had 12 steps in front of me telling me it could get me out of this alcoholism and it could get me to a higher power, I had seen an individual demonstrate he is in touch with higher power, right? He didn't do that. He's not a magician, right? We all were there in that moment, and nature, right? And spirit, God, whatever.
Right.
Now that was what got me on the road to recovery, because I knew that whatever this fucking formula was could get me out of the hole I was in. And I was also running, yeah.
And you still live by the 12 steps now? Like go to AA and stuff?
No, I don't still go to meetings. No.
Just curious.
Yeah, no. It became a much more practical and daily walk.
Personal thing, yeah. I understand.
Personal. Yeah.
I understand. Yeah. And the reason I ask is because I'm in the line of work of substance use treatment, and I've been through substance use treatment, and I've been down those rabbit holes, and a lot of people have some of the most interesting origin stories that have been down that rabbit hole. So I want to hear a little bit more about your origin story, particularly about like stage and theater background. Like, have you ever talked about that on podcast or anything?
No.
Would you mind sharing with us today?
Sure. Okay, dude, let's see. So high school, right? Am I going to be a lawyer? You know, that was kind of, I don't know, it was in my head. I don't know why. I was trying to think ahead, you know, I needed to, what were things that were going to engage me. And I went over to Europe and I went to Shakespeare's grave. I'd already discovered Shakespeare in high school, you know, and I loved it. You know, there's no other way to put it. It just struck deep chords within me, you know, reading all these stories about these powerful, you know, human beings. You could probably see the roots in like Dungeons and Dragons, you know.
Oh yeah.
I'd read that fantasy, you know, the Dungeons
and the Lord of the Rings too.
Novels. Yeah, absolutely. And so Shakespeare just hit a chord. And I was fortunate enough to have some teachers, right, who would recognize that, and they helped buffer that. So that led me to start a acting, what do you call it, club in a small private high school I was attending. There was no drama club,
that's
so I did
usually
that.
what it is, yeah.
That went to me spending some time in the acting department at the University of Alabama after I graduated high school. Did a lot there, did a lot of small theater there. They had a little box theater. Did one show called FM. FM stands for fucking mother. So you can just imagine one of those edgy, you know, they were trying to push it. I'm a junior. I mean, I'm a freshman going, what the, all right, it's the lead. I'll take it. We're going to knock this off. Look, I got my best acting advice I'd ever received after that role. There was this chick that was directing, you know, all these plays. And she said, you know, your other buddy, and we won't say names. So yeah, she said, he's amazing. She said, but when he's up there, it's always him. You know, it's always him. She said, what that was just then, I don't know who the fuck that was, but that wasn't you, you know. And I just went, okay, I did it right that time, you know, and that stuck, right, and kept going. So from there, dude, New York City, I dropped out of the University of Alabama with 3 friends and came home, saved myself about $2,000 back in those days, and hopped an Amtrak train in Birmingham, Alabama. And went to Penn Station with really no plan, and you know, knew some people. Things worked out. We got an apartment in Queens. I had already made up my mind. If I was gonna do this acting game, I was gonna do what Peter O'Toole did. You know, he'd become sort of my personal, you know, how-to manual on this shit if I was gonna do it. So that meant I needed to find the closest thing I could to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. And in New York, they had the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. So I auditioned, got in there, spent a year there. And then September 11th happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Watched that from my window in that apartment that we shared in Queens.
What?
Yeah. And woke up, dude, you're not, the morning before.
Please.
Okay. So it's Tuesday, right? That it happens, right? So Monday, my roommate Dave and I are driving back from a wedding in Ohio, and our apartment was in Queens. and we were coming through fucking leaking tunnel, and I'm asking him, had he ever been to the World Trade Center, man? Because I had been like a couple of weeks before. There were some live action role player dudes that I hung out with, and they'd go be vampires and shit.
Yeah, Vampire the Masquerade. Yeah, I played that.
They'd go do that shit in the atrium, man, at the World Trade Center, and I'd go just watch. It was to me just fucking fascinating, weird, but anyway. I asked Dave if he'd ever seen the World Trade Center, and Dave said no. So I had previously stood at the bottom and looked straight up, and I wanted him to. So we have our rental car, and we were down there like maybe 2 a.m., dude. 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning. And we park in the middle of the street, it's fucking empty. And we get out, and we look up. And I get him, we look up, and we get home. And I don't know, 9 a.m. the next morning, my little, plaster wall in Queens bang. And Dave is saying, dude, get up. Why, man? Why? We don't have anything. No. They bombed the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Get up.
So that's 9 o'clock. So that's like an hour later. Almost,
the first plane, it had already hit. And you get up, dude. Our window was from our window on the river. You can see the Queensboro Bridge, right? And so you could see effectively the entire skyline all the way from the Twin Towers. You could see those. I could see the watch. Every night we sat on our sofa and we watched the top of the Empire State Building turn off, right?
Wow.
At midnight, it turns off. So if you would do our own little personal deal, we'd go, all right, ooh, and we'd show all our friends and shit.
Right.
But yeah, we watched it.
That's crazy. So you watched the second plane hit?
He did. Okay. Yeah. We were busy also trying to get calls out to home. What I mean?
Right.
We're trying to check on family. Honestly, we also were we were concerned with getting beer because we had been on our roof, dude, and F-18s were flying overhead, man. In all seriousness, right? F-18s are scrambling overhead. They cut off communication, right? There is no communication. What does that mean? That is the first act of war, right? Okay, so now all the information we had, I don't know what y'all had. Information we had, they bombed the Pentagon, right? A missile, fucking something had hit the World Trade Centers. They'd bombed it. F-18s are scrambling overhead, and communications are cut. We thought we had a front row seat to the end.
Wow.
Right. So we wanted to secure beer. We wanted to secure our neighbors. While we were out securing our neighbors, we wanted to secure supplies, right? And then we all wanted to go to the roof and prepare for what we thought could be the end.
Wow.
And later that evening, of all fucking people, Howard Stern came on the radio, and that was the first info we got, that the rest.
Wow, really? From Howard Stern?
Yeah, I know. Weird, right?
You guys had your information was cut off. You couldn't you couldn't call or anything?
Nothing, dude. No communication whatsoever, right? First act 4, everything cut. Nothing in, nothing out.
Amazing. Yeah. I got to tell you, people, my story, because it's a little weird. But I went home from school the day before, and I went to my brother's house, and I was living with my brother at the time, and we just had like no cable, like a Nintendo 64, no cell phones. I don't even think we had a home phone, to be honest. We had this like apartment above a convenience store. And the next day, I was in school for culinary arts at Nova Scotia Community College.
Yeah.
And the next day, I went to school. Like, I took the bus to school, and I got there around 9 o'clock. And there was like all these like rescue people, like volunteers and stuff, with like tables everywhere and stuff. And I thought I had class. Next thing you know, within a few hours, there was like 4,000 people who had been diverted from their flights from New York to Nova Scotia at my community college. And I spent like a week like serving them food and stuff like that. But what was crazy was I didn't even know that it happened. When I got to school, there was a guy who didn't go to my school that I knew who was like there. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, you don't know? And he pulled me to the cafeteria and he pointed to the TV, and I was like, what the hell? And then I just kind of jumped in and started helping.
That is so wild, dude.
It is. I think everyone has a wild 9/11 story.
It
So
is.
you're
It is.
so you're,
But
you're
yeah, so
from
I
New
was.
York?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm
I thought you
from
said I
here.
went back home. Okay, all right.
No, we were three young men from Alabama
Alabama
with an
going to New
acting
York.
dream,
Yeah, yeah.
and so.
So what did 9/11 do to the acting dream?
Well, look, it doesn't take a fucking genius to realize you could not stick around that town. There's no way to probably accurately describe the 3 months after that in Manhattan to anybody who wasn't there.
Yeah,
But
I can imagine.
the most accurate description is probably something like rats fleeing a motherfucking ship like it was burning to the ground, sinking, drowning, everything terrible was happening at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Those that were stuck there were everybody depended on tourism, man. Nobody was coming. Everybody that stuck there was in a daze because everybody had known somebody that had died. Everybody felt vulnerable. Everybody was full of fear, right? Everybody was also pretty nice to each other. It was a rare moment in the city.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that for a while there. Like everyone was going for the sports teams and stuff like that. And
Dude, it was just everybody. It was much more. I'm from the South, right? I live here in Alabama. I'm from Alabama, and you're in Georgia. So
yeah,
you're used to a certain, especially if you grow up here, a certain way of life. You go to Manhattan, it's like, whoa, what the fuck was that, right? But
yeah.
no, during that time, it changed. I remember when we had to leave, we couldn't pay rent because I'd been bartending in Broadway theaters, right? That's how I was making my money. I got to see the plays, watch the Broadway plays, and
Nice.
make my cash, right? But nothing, everything's dry, so we hadn't been paying rent. You couldn't. New York is very protective of renters, right? So you got to go before a judge, and then the judge has to make sure you're okay before you get evicted, right? Well, dude, we're standing there before the judge, and we've got nothing, literally nothing, and the judge looks at us and says, what are you boys gonna do? Well, I found a friend back home that had a condo down at Orange Beach, Alabama, that it
Hmm.
was off season. Nobody was there. We could rent. And he's like, we're going. And he's like, let me get this straight. And he looks over at the bailiff and he says, you two boys don't have a nickel to rub between you, and you're headed to the beach. And he said, yes, sir. He said,
Apparently.
God bless you, right? And that's what I mean. Everybody was just it was like a small town vibe everywhere you went, which was not what I'd experienced in Manhattan before that, because everybody, it was mass trauma, and so
Right.
everybody naturally was just reacting to each other. The Pakistani who I bought my beer from, couldn't have told me God bless America more times.
Right.
It's just everyone wanted to grab hold of each other and go, all right, fuck it, whatever, differences don't matter for a second. That was wild.
It was a weird, life-altering day for humanity.
It
But
wasn't it
for
though.
people like living there, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that story about that. And in the stage and theater, so after that, you moved back to Alabama to
I
the
did.
beach,
For,
and
for, for a year. Yeah. I stuck it out there a year, just trying to sort out life, dude. Yeah.
the beach is a good place to do that.
It was cold weather, but it was nice because that meant nobody else was there.
That's true.
So I did electrical work, worked on, building some condos and towers, and
Mhm.
then go swimming in the Gulf in the winter. That breeds
That
a
sounds
type of
refreshing.
swimmer. It is. And so, yeah, that was that year of just going, all right, what is life now?
Do you practice cold exposure, like as a thing?
None as a thing. No.
But
Uh,
occasionally you'll go commune with the ocean in the cold or a
Oh
lake.
yeah, I never shy away from it. I mean, I'm
Mm.
in. When it comes to me in water, dude, hot or cold, I'm in. Especially if it's while I'm out exploring. It's kind of, I sort of seek water, at
Right.
least in the terrain around here, as part of the exploration process.
That's a good transition actually into what you do with the Antediluvian Alabama stuff. So, how did this come about? Like,
Okay,
How do you want to do this?
So, all right. So let's just do it like this. You've already heard most of the story, right, man? So fast forward, 20 years, and you heard me go to AA, and I start making choices, and life shifts, right? And I get in touch with something inside me, and I start finding these things, man, as I'm out on these creeks chasing this connection, this healing I'm doing for myself, with myself. That's what shaman really means, man. Is you had problems, right? And you went out and you did the inner work, and when you come back, right, from that, you then are able to, like they tell you in AA, find another, right, and go, hey, I can't tell you what to do unless you want to listen. It's in that kind of vein, right? But so I'm out engaged in those processes, dude, and the reality of that, me being in my curiosity, me continuing to push this constant contact, right? I then realize I get in touch with a native spirit, right? And I start finding things, right, of a native nature around here, from mounds to stuffs in these creeks, right? I'm not looking for, here's where we're going to stop quickly, the site of the Battle of Mabila, right, which mainstream had been looking for. Well, through this, let's fast forward this spiritual process, I find Mabila. Everyone go check out, what is it? Universe. I did a presentation with Universe Unveiled, Finding Mabila. It's on my X page. Everything's there. You'll get this part of the story. We are going to fast forward to Antediluvian. So life, man, once I sort of spend a year realizing that's what I found, you know what I mean? I'm good now out in the woods. I live out there really when I could. I had my dogs with me, finding, mapping mounds, undocumented. I'm doing all that, right? Yep. Life then sort of snaps and breaks, and I've got to move forcibly up to central Alabama, right?
Okay.
And this is where we're going to start sharing stuff. All right. So during the time I'd found Mabila, right, I also, something I talked about in my Jeff Up North episode, and you can also see on my X page, Help Me Trust Big Archaeology again. I did attempt to go to mainstream when I found all this stuff originally, and ran into some friction, which I cover there. And we don't have to bring that to bear to this part of the story, right? So point is, I kept going with my research, dude. And I started mapping out De Soto's route, right? That's a big thing for everybody. They've been trying to find that for 100 years. So once I realized I'm not going to get the response, and they're not going to listen to me about what I found, I kept going, right? I just kept going. I mapped out De Soto. Now, when you start mapping out De Soto's route, once you find the site of Attahachie, the site of Piaccia, which are the sites they're looking for in Tuscaloosa's territory, you then have solved the two river crossing conundrum, which has been their problem about wondering when he actually crossed over the Coosa River. So once I could do that, I could trace him north, right? And now the northernmost part of Alabama, there's a place called De Soto Falls, right? And these are some antediluvian videos called De Soto Falls. I get to De Soto Falls, looking, tracing, just going, hey, I know he went there. Let me go check it out. And I start noticing things, Dave, out there studying myself on these creeks. I learned how to get very objective about my own personal narrative, this backstory I've relayed to you. You when you're healing yourself, man, you have to learn how to disengage from that entirely and get out here and look back at it. And that's a hard process.
It is.
Once you get that done,
one of the hardest processes.
Amen. But once you get that done, right, you realize now you can also do that with the world itself, with all things. Nietzsche harped on it, getting rid of the thou shouts and then coming out like a child, like the innocent child. That's why the inner child is so important to us, right? So it's like that. I was seeing everything with fresh eyes, man. And I get up there to this terrain on Lookout Mountain, dude, and I'm going, what the fuck is this, right? How did this happen? We're going to get to some visuals. But then that was just my first entree, man. So I found myself moved to Birmingham to a neighborhood called Mountain Brook, right? And these are where I'm going to start trying to screen share with you here in a second. Mountain Brook is this neighborhood. And we were flipping houses, Dave. I had a partner. We were flipping houses there in Mountain Brook. It's extremely, bougie neighborhood. I say that for one reason. The yards are massive and protected, right? In these yards are these massive rocks. just massive. It's like the thing. It's what Mountain Brook's known for. Now I'm going to give you a visual, Dave, and this will lead us into Antediluvian Alabama pretty quickly, I think.
Sweet.
Let's see. Screen shares here. Now, if I can share my iCloud inbox with you. Now, Dave, I had already begun, it must be noted here, research of Graham Hancock while I was in the waiting time of this mainstream. You go online and you start looking and you go, okay, where else can I find some wisdom of some people who are looking into the truth of our past? Graham Hancock had just written a book entitled America Before, right?
I got it up there.
Yeah, so I found. Are you seeing videos now?
Yeah, I'm seeing. I'm seeing the videos. Yeah,
great. So America Before had been written, and so I read this, and having trusting then the wisdom of this man, I dive into this work, and I find what my mind needed to be satisfied with, unequivocal evidence of a former epoch of time. Right now, I get to Mountain Brook after having gone to De Soto Falls on Lookout Mountain. And I start looking around the yards of these houses I'm flipping, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. So this morning, we're over here in Mountain Brook, Alabama.
Huh.
Hang on. One of my backyards. So I'm going to let this video play and give you some audio over here. So gentlemen this house was empty, right? And there was a book, Dave, left in here. And it was a book I still have behind me here in Underworld by Graham Hancock.
Yeah, I got that on my nightstand.
Yeah, okay. This gentleman also had photo albums where he had traveled the world going to megalithic sites. As you look at the tumbled rocks that were his backyard, right? And he had documented himself at all these megalithic sites. He himself, knew what his yard was. That cliff there is the back of Mountain Brook. Now, maybe nothing dramatic, right? But it continues. It plays out, right? It's a theme that ran all across this neighborhood. And this is, again, just sort of the very beginning. This one is great. You can see in the back of this one house I was touring.
It's northern Alabama.
This is in Birmingham, man. This is central, right? Here, I've got if we could share full screen, I need to be able to share full screen because I've got a map of Alabama to give everybody coordinates on this stuff.
We can, but let's check these out first, and then we'll share screen.
Okay, so my wife and I. So let me. So this is what I just want to evidence is these little bits of grooving, right? You'll see giant rock, you'll go up to it, and you're going, man, no, there's no way wind and water, right? If you're taking a close eye. And that's all I hope to exhibit to the audience. You look at this groove here, right?
Yeah.
So this is a boulder the size of, a car, right?
Yeah, and we're looking through the lens of America Before and how North America, and South America, and North America are particularly, if North America was the epicenter of the catastrophe, then civilizations would be, reduced to rubble this north of, the equator, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the science, backs up the airburst theory, which is just personally what I go with. I also believe there could have been nearly every factor. There's the data is constantly spinning on what all could have been involved in this event.
Plasma, pole shifts.
Right. There's all of that. But dude, when I take you to Hoover here now, right? And you start to see what I saw. Here's how I describe it. I see evidence of a high heat, high energy event, right? Meaning I see melting everywhere and I see rocks. I see giant rocks in the side of hills blown into them by force, right? I see piles of rubble on top of each other by force, right? So what that fits with is the science that like Mark Young put out the study over here in Louisiana, man, not far from us, where they found what they needed to back up airburst crater, if you call it that.
Yep.
So that does align with the Younger Dryas comet impact hypothesis, where the debris field was mostly scattered across North America, hitting the ice sheets, then sending the water flooding down through the West Coast, right? And then through here, actually, you remember I got to ask Randall, what the fuck happened through here? He said it washed through here and then out to the Gulf of Mexico.
He's talking about at Quest for Ancient Civilization conference.
Yeah, I got to ask Randall what were the antediluvian qualities.
He lives around here. We should get him to hang out.
Absolutely. Well, he said he wanted to come on the podcast and chat, and I'm not. I don't run in that circle, so I don't know how to confirm and make that happen. But I'm sure he'll find his way to me when he wishes to continue the chat. So listen, let's keep getting you to what is Antediluvian Alabama, dude. So next, I get over to the Cahaba River, and my map in LiDAR is the best way to show the audience this.
Do you want to show that now?
Here. No. I should be able to pull everything from here. I've got where maps, LiDAR.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So once we get up to, again, we're in Birmingham, right? At this point, I'm doing a house right here in the corner of the Cahaba River, right? So I'm here, and I go down to the water, dude, doing my thing, the same thing I'd been doing down here, connecting. And I start noticing, I look up, and there's these giant rocks just blown into the side of this 60-foot ravine, right? That makes up this very odd triangular turn in the river. You can see right here, 90s down here at the south, at 90s. Yeah. Right. It's a very odd place. Now, I had already been to Mountain Brook. You see, that's why I showed you there, right? I had already known in my mind, objectively, I was seeing evidence of this Younger Dryas debris field, this catastrophe, and something that we were told wasn't here had been here. Okay. So now I'm sitting here, dude, here at this house. And look, I go down to the water, and let me show you what I find down at the water. Down at the water, I find this rock.
Oh, weird.
All right. Now, this rock, when you get in there, you start to realize that's the only way to describe those markings are cut markings, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm right here in the bend of the river, guys. Just sort of, you see all the rocks, man, on this side. The other side is all sand. You see, it's like a debris field. Now, most interestingly, is it's not in this video. This is a really old one. I told you I'd use the old stuff for you, man. But to keep us going, so this I call the Cahaba River X, right?
Cahaba River X, cool.
Okay, now let me back you back.
Interesting. Yeah, that does look like it has to be cut.
It does. Right.
And whenever it was cut, it has to have been.
Next, like this is a stone next to it, that exhibits the same sort of.
Next to it, how close?
Oh, within a feet, man. Depending on how much these videos you want to watch.
That's weird. Yeah, check them out. Let's check them out.
Yeah, on Antediluvian Alabama, I mean, I walk you the whole way, actually. I walk you from the X to the Mound.
Yeah, so what could have possibly caused that in your mind?
Okay, so bear with me to show you the map one more time, which is right here.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of you.
No, you're okay, man. Don't. The X and those cut stones are right here. Do you see my mouse? Is that translating? Yeah. Okay. So here we are, X and the cut marks, right? Now, at this point, right, and I see all these shattered stones, I'm going, all right, I've got more evidence. I see signs of force, right, happening. And I say, let's pull up a map. I pull up a satellite map, and what do I see? I see a triangle. And I see, right? Now, I know this forest all through here is deciduous, bro, and it is old growth, trees this big. Miniature deer scared the shit out of me. I thought it was the biggest rabbit I'd ever seen in my life, but it turns out it's miniature deer.
Weird.
Wild boar, right? So what is this thing? Well, I told you about Mabila. I told you about learning about native mounds. I'm thinking, holy shit. This has to be some sort of a mound, but why the different trees? Why the different trees, right? Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead in my knowledge. First thing I did was went over there, and I've got a video walking all the way over there. But let me just give our audience the LiDAR image that I got years later.
Sure.
Of that site. Okay, so.
Oh wow.
All right. Neat. So yeah, it's a mound, right? It's a mound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now,
very cool.
Yeah. So if I take you back to Hoover and we go to, where's the long video? This is Moss Rock. So this is a mile north of this area I'm showing you now.
It's an earthen mound.
No, it's a pile of stone, dude, with drill holes in it. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Hang on. Okay. So here's my full walk over, right?
Good morning. So I was going to walk over to the drill holes and film it. And I was a little nervous about it. And no matter how I do it, I'll always wish I'd done it different, I'm sure. So I'll just take you on a walk with me. From the X. So
now look here, dude.
Here.
Barefoot like a badass.
Look, let me get the volume down and let me see if, look at this piece of rock that I pick up in this particular video.
You're a primal beast, the man in your bare feet. Holy.
Yeah, fully connected. Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's how I learned it. It's how I learned it, man.
It's necessary.
That's how I learned it. Now look at this. Look at this, dude. Okay. This is just a piece of the type rock that you pull out of that river right there. You see how it looked almost like a piece of concrete. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right. That's the same type stone, bro, that this is. It's the same type stone. Let's just, you got to take me for it. But continuing our walk. So I fast forward you, man. I just show you the river here. You see all this stone blown to this side. Now, when I get to the other side, you're going to notice it's all sand, man.
Yeah.
Right? You'll see various little cuts like I showed you in some of these stones. They all have shatter marks that are obvious.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm just continuing my way over. There's a heron that flies. Very strange little stuff you find on the beach. I'll show you. But let's fast forward. All right. So as soon as you climb up this thing, bro, you're in a sinkhole, right? So I am directly in front of, if that thing, that mound is a triangle, right? You see this little here? All right. Straight on back, I'll show you in a minute, is the mound, but this is a sinkhole that to my mind would be, who knows what could be under this thing once you hear see the full picture. So to let you see the mound, what it looks like from afar, there's the house, there's all the rocks down there. Now we walk our way up this old growth forest.
This is where the trees changed?
Yeah. So see, look at the size of these trees, dude. Right? And you'll see the mound. Okay. Hang on. This is the mound coming into view back here. You see it? It's like a native mound, right?
Yeah. I've seen some of these. I've seen some in Georgia.
Yeah, that's the triangular mound. Now, the difference with this one is you need volume here.
On the map I provided.
Is you'll see it's a pile of stones.
What the?
Yeah.
Here's your approach from any side.
Listen. See all these boulders falling off of it? Look all through back there, dude. All right. It's just a pile of stone. I'm going to climb it for you. I got lots of video on this, so.
We'll climb it here at the point.
Yeah, this is crazy.
But we're going to climb it. And here, I believe.
Young pine forest.
Okay, now
into the young
you can see
pine forest.
Yeah.
Right up here, it's all these young pine trees because this thing is stone, right?
Yes.
When you move the pine straw, it's chalky dust, right? It's all stone, so the tap roots can't get there. So these coniferous trees can only get so big, man, before they fall over. It's like a sanctuary. It's a beautiful place.
You can clearly see it on the map too.
Yeah, and it's like whatever, two football fields across and flat as a plain. But
we'll take us a nice
some of the stones
along the edge.
But this is all boulders you're walking on top of.
Yeah, and that's exhibited pretty much every time I go to the edge. I'm showing you the rocks sticking out.
Yeah.
Right.
Rubble.
It's all rubble all the way down.
Huh.
Now, the drill hole, I believe, is at the 10-minute mark.
Let's look first.
See the trees falling over.
Yeah.
You know, they can only get so big before over they go.
Yeah.
See, you hear it's all giant rocks, dude.
If you were to go digging up here,
giant rocks.
You quickly find. So here we have the first drill hole.
It's crazy those trees are growing there.
This is where I found my turtle the other day.
So here is what I'm going to tell you. You tell me what it looks like to you. It's a rock sticking out of the point of this thing.
Okay.
Huh. That's weird. Oh, wow. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. If you carbon date the moss, you just get like, I guess, when the last time it was
prominently
cut or whatever. Also, but it was cut, or it was, you know.
It's about placement too, you know, with it pointing at that X stone. Right.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's weird, dude. It is that. Now,
I found two.
Carrying on, I get down to the other end, and you see, it's all rubble. Just I want the audience to see. This is when you start going down. This is what you see.
And relocate.
It's giant pile of rock,
my
leveled off at the top in a triangle.
My feet hurt just looking at this. You're an absolute savage, Jason.
That's how I learned. That's how I learned.
I need to get there. I'm working on it.
So you see, and the rocks, they scatter on, you know, like some have fallen from, but you see how big these things are, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and that's what that triangular mound that you can see the LiDAR of is a pile of rock. Okay? So that's
insane.
That sort of serves as my entree into the reality, right, of what we call Antediluvian Alabama. What was behind that X is really crazy. It's all this really shiny stuff that when you put it in muriatic acid, it doesn't dissolve it. And that's only supposed to happen with precious metals. Yeah, it's weird place, bro. But it carried on to Lookout Mountain, man. And Lookout Mountain is where things start to get really weird when you start getting out there. There's some pictures. But the best way to do that is to, you know, of course,
that is wild. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
I've seen a picture of you standing next to this or something before.
Yes. Sure. So in the YouTube, if I'm navigating this correctly, this is my second time trying to navigate all this crap. Let's see. That's that window, boom. Now I need.
If you want to share YouTube, I think.
So once you get up on Lookout Mountain, after we've, you know, I'll briefly say, dude, so about the triangular mound, you know, what that did for this dude, right, was as I knew for me that I was standing on a reality of something that I was told wasn't a reality, right? Someone had come back and what I had found initially as strewn rubble and had put it in a mound, and that was not native. You know, natives can't move those boulders, dude. I've worked at a Thompson Caterpillar warehouse. They have trucks that couldn't move this rubble, right?
Sure.
So how did that happen? And in my mind, I was settled then that there had been something that had come before, right? And had been destroyed. So then you go up to Lookout Mountain, again, chasing De Soto and De Soto State Park, and you come across metal and stone, such as...
I think I know where I'm going camping next.
Right. This is a magical place, brother. It really is. There's no.
Well, we were looking for a place to go camping soon, sooner rather than later, even though it's winter.
So the picture you were speaking of, I believe, with me in front of it, is there.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, And this here, man, if you're seeing my marker, right?
What in
So
the fuck is that?
all right, so it's symmetrical, right? You know, you've got same distances here. This whole thing carries over, same as there, right? You've got a center point. Now it's metallic, right? There's metal. All this little white stuff.
What
I'm
kind of
gonna.
metal? Do you know what kind of metal?
No, I don't. It rusts, colored. You know, no, I don't, man. I haven't.
Okay,
You know,
no
I'm not
worries.
a. I'm in the field.
An adventure, yeah.
Right. I'm just out here finding this shit, raising these questions, bro. So and then this quartz. Okay, what I'm telling you here is all these little white pebbles you'll see in these videos.
Weird. That's weird.
It's like concrete, man. It's precisely like concrete. It's these white pebbles trapped in matrix. Now the thing is, this isn't the only one of these bad boys. As after I found this, I soon learned I continued to walk down the hill.
Patterns.
Let's see. Yeah, now you'll see, right? Let's see. There we go. Right here. Look at this piece, dude.
Let me give you perspective.
Okay, so there's this grooving here on the bottom that wind and water could not do, right? It's grooving, it's equal grooving, it's the same depth. It's almost like a cart rut, right? And it's on the side and it's protected, right?
Here, right?
Now I want you to see it's just these giant
see all the metal up there in the divot.
Huh.
Okay.
The grooving. All these pieces.
I called them piles of rubble. I don't know what else to call them, really.
On the underside.
I'm gonna try to think of a better name.
Also, all of these stones are made of that same matrix you see with these little white pebbles in it and little layers of metal evident in there. Now, carrying on, I'll fast forward us a little bit, dude, and we'll get to that circular deposit, and we'll show the audience that, in matter of fact, here's some good perspective.
I'm trying to think of a name instead of pile of rubble.
Look at these piles of man, they're cut. You know, they're like megalithic stone, right?
Antediluvian stone matrix.
Got fucking blown apart. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, but there, let's see. Let's get to. So you're walking down the hill and look at all this melted looking stuff, right?
What the?
Yeah, just this is walking down the hill, dude. The whole mountaintop is covered in this shit. Everywhere you go, that's my whole series. Okay, is just covered in this, and it's all the same.
What on earth is that?
Now, right here, yeah, check this out. I found another circular metal.
No shit.
Yeah, this is 40 feet down the hill, 40 yards down the hill, maybe. You'll see. I walk it here. You see the metal? Yeah.
See the surface?
So you're
continuing.
This is a separate, smaller piece of stone, dude, with these same metal concentric circles in it.
Are you asserting like a high heat event did that? That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, I would assert well, an airburst, right, is the equivalent of however many, I don't know the math, 100,000 nuclear bombs. I mean, you get the heat and the energy from an airburst, let alone you know, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis purports that this could have happened over years, right? So you're talking maybe thousands of just.
Can you pause it on? Can you pause it on there for a second?
You know, airburst after airburst. Yeah, let me
on the face of it.
Yeah.
You know, you're right. No one really knows how, like, it could have happened, like, you know, really quickly or over like 100 years or whatever. But like, you know, if we were bombarded, which I think it's clear that we were, this definitely suggests evidence, if you ask me. It requires further inquiry, that's for sure.
It's certainly a question, is it not? You know.
Yeah, that's weird.
To me, and then the fact that the mirror image is back up the hill. You know.
I spent 3 hours talking to Ed Casis about tridactyls, so I literally see a tridactyl face in there. But
don't do that.
I literally do. But that thing's crazy. I don't know how that would happen, but I'm not a geologist or anything, but
so
I'd be interested in a geologist's like explanation of that.
Yeah, no doubt. And then there's the other one. So see, I was just down there at the bottom of the hill, and you walk up and you find that one.
So that's 3.
Yeah. So see, here's watch. I'm going to walk you up to the first one up here. I'm leaving that piece of stone. Look at this pile of rubble. There's Logan. Hey, Logan.
Hey, Logan.
And look at the piles of rubble, right? Now, this melting and this metal all under this giant, dude, this thing's 2 stories tall. Now, here I come up to the one you know from the picture. I showed it first.
Wow.
Right here. Yeah. Now, behind this, I'm going to walk back around. There's a third that is much fainter.
Those crazy stones back there are crazy too, to your right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this whole park is insane. This is DeSoto State Park. And yeah, we can go as long as you want, dude. But that's the rest of what I evidence is just showing you how this stuff is everywhere. Every single stone I show you has this quartz matrix in it, like a concrete. I have episodes dedicated, antediluvian ones called the Quartz Conundrum. Actually, I like alliteration, you know. But you see what I do, man. I'm just out doing my thing, exploring and documenting this stuff. But since we have YouTube up,
do you have any other crazy ones you want to show me?
Yeah,
and what's the Quartz Conundrum?
Well, what is all that little rock? What is all that little quartz rock? Because it seems to me to indicate like a casting, you know. Man, there's places you get in and watch these videos, there's places where it looks like that shit was spilt for 2 acres. It looks like somebody literally spilt a concrete truck. Right. Even my daughter, man, we're walking out of one of the overviews of Little River, and it was built in whatever the 50s, and the concrete, is really gray, and it's got all these little white rocks in it. And my daughter's just walking there going, same shit. And I know, baby, but it's not. That's the thing. These are giant pieces of stone. So
we can edit anything out if you want to like pull to a certain spot and like fast forward or whatever.
Okay. But these are dramatic.
Yeah, wow. Where's this?
This is DeSoto Falls. Yeah, this is DeSoto Falls.
I may have been there. I can't remember for sure, but
the roadside rocks, let me get you to them, dude, these are pretty wild.
And I'm trying to look at this through the lens of catastrophism and the understanding that geology happens both very slowly and sometimes catastrophically quickly. And you have to consider both at the same time when we're looking at this stuff. And sometimes you just can't explain some of these things with gradualism,
Right.
You just can't, like cuts like that and whatnot. It just doesn't make any sense. That thing, what are we looking at here?
So this is you tell me. It's a pile of big rocks. Looks like some sort of statue almost got blown apart. You're going to see fissures, dude. You're going to get down here and there's a paw, look at this. Look at this. What did that, man? Again, this all has the little,
all that stuff up there is wild.
Look at now back here. Let's get to, I can fast forward. This is YouTube. Let me look at this sucker right here. Watch what's right back here. In fact, I've got where I come here in winter at the end of this. I should just jump to that where you can really see. But here, let's get us over to it.
Going good. Just taking a 103.
There. All right. This thing. So here I am back up there in cold weather when the leaves are gone. And look at this thing.
What the
Look at this stuff here. Look at that thing.
That's going to be the title of this interview. It's just going to be a quote of me saying, "What the F?" and a picture of that.
So this also has some of the metal on it. It is.
That's just in the middle of a field? Like what? That's on the side of a road?
Full top of the mountain. Yeah, dude. So now look, right about 50 yards back there is the canyon rim, dropping down to the east fork of the Little River on the De Soto State Park. These type rocks exist all along that canyon. Then the Little River Canyon is the largest canyon up there. Same thing. These rock formations litter the canyon rim. Yeah.
Wow.
There's thorns. Look at this.
Just look at it. Has Randall Carlson seen this shit?
I don't know, dude.
I hope so.
I hope so. I would love to dissect it with him. That would be a pleasure.
I hear that wind racing.
So
I'll tag him in these, but he's a bit elusive. So
yeah, I know.
He's been on our show, but he's been a bit elusive.
Yeah, I don't wish to bother anybody that wishes to be elusive, but he did indicate when I was asked him the question, and he was kind enough to answer. As I was leaving the stage, he said, "We can come on and talk about it on your show sometime. Look at this metal, dude. See, that's just weird metal with black on the back of that paw-looking thing.
And it's burnt. It looks like burnt stuff in Egypt too."
Right. And it goes on and on and on. I mean, if you ask me to show you something more dramatic or less dramatic, it's all just as dramatic as you're seeing. You know what I mean, bro? We could literally sit here and watch for hours every video, and everything I show you is this. Just more and more of it. Honestly.
And so, the term Antediluvian Alabama refers to just pre-flood, right?
Yeah. I like alliteration. You got to name a series I'm putting together. See, when I first started trying to put this stuff out, man, I was on Rumble, and it's just me on my phone, right? Am I done sharing? Am I still sharing?
Yeah, you're done sharing.
It's just me on my phone, right? And I'm trying to sort of put it out through several channels. I started my own little folder on like Graham Hancock's what do you call them? Message boards, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I was using that, and I was filing. You had to figure out how to share how to share videos, and Rumble, was just simple. I grabbed it, and Rumble, free speech. I was like, why not?
Yeah.
But all my Rumble stuff was me just sort of grabbing this stuff and throwing it out. Well, then I get to X, and I realize, okay, I can start pairing videos, and describing.
And you got free speech.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then finally, what you're seeing on YouTube is very recent, is me trying to figure out how now to take all of these years of videos and all of this work and put it together in a cohesive package. And that's what I've attempted to do with, I think, the 8 episodes of Antediluvian Alabama. When you go through them, I start them each with exposition, explaining to you what you're going to be seeing, what the theory is with it, and when you go through it, I hope you sort of gained it. What I did, dude, was I walked myself out of what I call narrative blindness. We're told this thing wasn't real. It's real. And this is the evidence that I used for my own self to get myself to believe, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. And I like how you discovered this stuff while kind of communing with yourself. And with nature. Do you think you would have been able to see it through the right lens had you not been sober, or trying to do this like self journey?
No, this is part and parcel with the self journey. This was a generative idea between spirit and myself, man, that I agreed to be walked along, to dedicate myself to one day at a time, wherever that meant, whatever that meant. I learned to do that in a personal way. I went through a lot personally before I started finding this stuff, man. And so by the time I started finding this stuff, I learned that I was on a mission, and I could start to see what that mission was. Not to get too far afield on you though. And what that mission was to walk myself right into these realities, and then try to figure out how to share. Right. And yeah, that's it. The reality of communing with spirit can only happen when you're sober, right? And when you've gone through steps, and when you have your ego in its right place, and your mind and all of your faculties where they should be, right? You know, I don't want to start preaching on you, Dave, but
No, I
I am a very
appreciate it.
spiritual person, so it is a big part of what I do, and it is a big part of how I got all of this. You know, everything I have behind me is all been chasing that conscious contact, right, with my higher power one day at a time, regardless of going to AA meeting. That formula fucking worked, and it saved my life, and I've been using it one day at a time since. And in the meantime, I've been doing my best to put together a picture of what I was learning while I was doing it, you know.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was going to ask you about was spirituality, so I'm glad that you brought it up. It's something I'm like working on getting in touch with for the first time, in a while, and it's a sensitive subject. But like, what is it to you? What is spirituality to you now, in this stage of your life?
Well, it's who and what I am. It's what I strive to be. I strive to live a spiritual life. To try to define what that means to you, I might use a word like Christian, right? But
Okay.
I would direct people much more to me, Dave. Christ, he was a shaman, right? And then
Oh
sent
yeah.
to use the word, one who communes with, we have this physical realm, which we all go five senses. We can sense it. It's real. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we've got these other realms that we go, well, those are real too. All right. Shaman, one who communes with those. I saw him from that perspective. And when I faced my trials, bro, I needed a roadmap, and that roadmap, was the one I was going to follow. And it answered back, Dave. Its reality came to me, right? I didn't need anything else. I didn't need anybody else's formula. You know what I mean? What that map that Christ laid out, when I followed it for real, like just word for word, not worried about all the bullshit people put on it and all that crap, right? Because I was in hard times, Dave, and I needed something that fucking worked, because my kids
Right.
were on the line and my life was on the line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I applied
Been
it
there.
in a very realistic way, and it said, if you find my Father, in the quiet place, higher power, right? That's where I went. I once AA, I went to those steps, and I found this conscious contact with a power outside of, greater than myself. I then went to the quiet place with it, and I chased it, and I honored it, and I worked with it, and we got to know each other, and then it becomes a partnership. That's what spirituality is to me, and that's again why I use the word shaman. It is a partnership with a higher power who you have learned to trust has your best interests at heart. That's sort of the heart of AA. That is the 12 steps. It is 12 steps to a spiritual awakening, right? That there is some power, right? You don't have to name it. That's why they don't name it. A dude in there says, you turn a lot of people off Jesus by saying Jesus, But
Yeah.
the whole point is to find a higher power. Call it Chuck. Call it whatever the fuck. But the point is, you look, in AA, man, there's this thing that happens, third step prayer, dude. When you're an alcoholic. And what do I mean by that? I couldn't go somewhere without planning where the liquor store was. You know what I mean?
Right.
I couldn't exist without it. One day I find myself in a liquor store and I didn't know I was in there, because I had just done what they call that prayer, man, where you hit your knees and you go, I can't do this. If anything out there is actually fucking there and cares, please help, because I can't fucking do it here.
Right.
And you do that and you mean it in the quiet place, down on your knees. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, you're in a liquor store and you don't even realize, and you went, that's a miracle to you, right? It really is. And that's sort of to the kernel of this, man. It became a reality. And then I started chasing that and made that my daily walk. And because that's what they harp on. They say one day at a time. God says he is the great I am, not the great I was or the great I will be, right? Now is the only place we can find him. That's why Christ says you must be like the child to enter the kingdom. Where does the child exist? In the moment, in the now, right?
There's just so much adulthood plaque you gotta shake off. You gotta shake off, man. You know what I'm saying?
There is, dude.
That's my best way to describe it. I said that on another episode a couple days ago, so I'm gonna coin that phrase. But I'm like literally trying to let go right now as we speak of certain things, and it's What's interesting about it, like, so I recently started doing Tai Chi. Have you ever done Tai Chi?
I have not. No.
Well, it is a personal journey of sorts, and it's become rather spiritual for me because I feel different moving my body afterwards and stuff like that. And I've started to do it in my backyard when it's nice out. And I want to get into the barefoot, but right now I'm wearing barefoot shoes, like with the wide toe box and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I still feel like I need the support.
Yeah. I mean,
You've always been doing that, or how long have you been doing that? I remember at Quest, your feet are like, they're like,
like hands. So
yeah, they are.
COVID, this was so 7 years ago now, man, right after I was getting sober. That's when he started, spirit, whatever. I'm starting going out in the woods and I'm connecting, dude, with the native. That's the best word to use. I'm starting to discover the native spirit of this place. And I met a dude who was always out in the woods, and he was always barefoot. And he was showing me around. He was a very poor, humble member of society, but he knew his shit, and he knew survivalism, right? And he knew the woods, and he knew him barefoot, and he knew him like I wanted to know him. I wanted to know him like the natives knew him, dude. The woods around here are thick with snakes. They're thick with vines. They're thick with thorns. They're thick with things that people just do not fuck with, right? But I wanted to because the natives did, and I wanted to inhabit that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did, and then COVID hit, of all things, and life really changed, and so
it sure
I was
did.
able to sort of keep the shoes off when I came out of the woods, and I no joke, I would say I went a solid year barefoot. I mean, I'm talking Walmart and everything, man, just to walk the earth barefoot completely.
I need to get in there. I just know it's super
I'm not
healthy.
suggesting it, just honestly answering how I got there, bro.
Well, I understand, as I'm recovering from back issues, that your feet and your connection to the ground and the earth is very, very, very important in your posture.
It is.
Yeah, it really is. And so I've been actually working on that really hard lately. But what do you think? Like, I don't know your personal philosophy on this, but you know that getting yourself to that egoless point of on your knees and letting go and giving up to a higher power. How do you feel about the tool of psychedelics in that process? Or is it necessary? Is it helpful?
I discovered the tool, right, of psilocybin after I had already progressed quite well along in
your sobriety and all that other
in these
stuff,
experiences.
yeah.
I have described to you the reality, right, of working with my higher power. I was well through. I was 4 years probably or so. I don't know, through that.
And then you discovered it, and you used the word tool, which is interesting.
Yes, because that's precisely what it is. It is a tool. The science now, is backing us up. We can call it that. But what it is for me was, yes, it was a tool. It was a tool I learned from studying the natives, that the natives of this area used profusely. And, after finding Mabila, man, what I learned, I didn't care about De Soto. I was amazed what I learned about Chief Tuscaloosa and about what the people were here, and so I was really just inhabiting that. It was becoming sort of home to me in a physical place, meaning on these creeks, but also in my soul, a feeling of home, and I knew psilocybin was used by them, right? And I learned how to harvest. I learned there was some psilocybin sources on a native area that I'd already identified around here, right? So I began my own research, and I learned that it is a tool that you use to communicate with extra, however, use your own word. Spirit is the word I use. Extra dimensions, reality. It's a tool. It's a tool that you then can be given depending on where you are, I guess, in your personal development. It does two things, man. There's the experience, okay? Now the experience is the experience. It's going to be something for you. It's going to be something for me. I do a big dose, right? So I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm going to have a meeting, as they say, waiting for the snakes to come and take over the ground,
You told me about this in
right?
depth at Quest for in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
at Quest for Ancient Civilization conference. Yeah,
that's a potentially very different, reason, but that's what I was doing out in the woods for there. But now there is also an effect that a scientific data proven effect that the psilocybin has on your brain, bro, and it helps rewire new neurons, right? Your neurons start firing, so you've got this plaque, as you call it, this adult plaque, right? You get you a nice sized dose of the psilocybin, and what happens is new neurons start to form, literally. How does that feel the next morning, bro? You wake up, and I describe it like this. If your brain were a chalkboard, and somebody else described it like this, is why I use it. Your brain were a chalkboard, and imagine every day you dry wiped the chalkboard clean, right? Every day of your life, you wiped it clean, right? Is it ever actually clean? What happens when you then splash water on the chalkboard? Okay, the psilocybin is kind of like splashing the water on the chalkboard. You wake up with this completely clean feeling. You have a window of time, it varies. Some say 2 days, 3 weeks, where you can start then making choices. I want to quit smoking. I want to, stop eating chocolates. I want to, whatever, not hit my wife. You can start making choices that will then
go back to school or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. There will be part of those new neurons that are forming. So you have a real opportunity and a tool that allows you to adjust and make positive change for yourself. Right. So there are many aspects to why I call it a tool.
Yeah.
It's not just because it's mean at parties.
My experience with it was like doing it in the wrong setting in as a teenager, at a pool hall or a rave or something like that, and then thinking it was a party drug, and then having a weird night, and then like going home
a little breathing. What's going on, man?
Going home a little freaked out.
Yeah.
But then I recently started with microdosing it. I think I might have mentioned it to you, but I haven't gone all in.
Yeah, I look under a proper set and setting. You mentioned it, set and setting. Now I'm giving no one else advice here. For me, proper set and setting is alone by a fire, as far in the woods as I can get. Hopefully, a good dog there just to keep anything at bay. Right. That to me is perfect setting, because that's what I'm going for is my own private, connection. You start getting in buildings, man, and you start getting around TV screens, and you're in the wrong space, and you're not going to get what you could get out of that thing.
That makes sense to me. How do you feel about microdosing just in general?
So it works, right? But dude, look, anything I use for my consciousness, right? Here's how I try to kind of view it, right? If it's going to take my consciousness up a notch from where it usually is, right? And I'm going to go visit a little higher level of consciousness. Now, I did that for a reason, okay? Whatever that reason is for me, I get this higher view. Now I'm going to come back down here.
It's intentional, right? Yeah. You're going with an intention, yeah.
Always with intent, right? Now I come back down here. What happens? Okay, what happens? Do I integrate this knowledge, or do I go, let me see if I could find a way to build some scaffolding to where my new baseline, consciousness is up here closer to that thing I experienced. Do I believe once you've achieved that, do I believe microdosing could be used to sort of build a scaffolding, as it were, to get your higher permanent baseline consciousness? Yes, I think that would make sense.
Yeah, it sounds like, and you mentioned it earlier, that so there's a lot of organizations out there that offer for like veterans like me, come out to Mexico or wherever, and we're gonna blast you off with ibogaine and a bunch of different shit in a 3 week or whatever they use in a 3-day ceremony.
In Africa, they call that the drug that makes men talk to dead men.
Well, you mentioned, finding psilocybin when you were already at a good spiritual place,
right?
So there's a big difference between like that and somebody who's like in a mess, and then like takes a massive dose to shake off the plaque, right?
Yeah, I can't really say, it really can't be grounded enough in the fact that me personally, yes, I was already well advanced in my own destruction of ego and personal walk with a higher power that I bent to every day of my life, no matter what it meant for me, right? I was already pretty far along in that self-development game when I then discovered there was a tool that could also help in my communication with this higher power that I was betting my life on. Yes, that is baseline for me, dude, for sure.
Yeah. As somebody who goes by shaman, do you do like shamanistic ceremonies for others?
No, I don't look. Logan. So Logan is I call him an adoptive son. He was a son of somebody I was friends with, seeing if I might, I don't know, date whatever for a while. Just bumped up against. I showed Logan what I did, which is you just going down by the creek, building a fire, and being present. No big wild game about it. Being
Yeah.
present and communing and leaning into what comes to you. And that
Uh,
that kid in a few years, had run with it himself to where he could drop into what he calls the shamanic realm, right in front of you in like 5 minutes. He just says, what
Man,
people would call soul flight, is a known word. So yeah, you bounce around all these things that so many people for thousands of years have taken, all of these different methods to get to, you know, the quickest way for me to say it, Dave, is I needed something that I could walk around with. I was going through so much shit, bro, that whatever I found had to always be there. Does that make sense?
yeah,
I, I had to find something that was always going to be there, something that was functional.
there really isn't much besides giving yourself to a higher power, is there?
No, not that was all there was for me, man.
Bro, it's like it's a control thing or something for me. Like I can't.
Look,
It's hard for me to give up the
I
control.
I called him out, to tell you the beginning of the story. I don't know if I've ever even said it, but I was facing a challenge in my life, dude, and it was a challenge I didn't think I'd ever face, right? And it involved a divorce and a tearing of a family, right? And it was just something I was just in a terrible place, dude. And I
Hmm.
walked out in a storm one night. The storm was raining, and I yelled, dude. I just yelled as loud as I could. I said, "All right, come here. Come here. If I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do this, this is the last decision I make.
Huh.
Everything from here on out, you have to show me the way, and I do not mean whispering in the night." And that's
Right.
that was how I began what I call my shamanic calling, right?
Hmm.
What in AA they said was putting everything on your higher power once you made that contact. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah.
did it, man.
Interesting. Yeah, man. Jason, I really appreciate the conversation. I'm looking forward to bringing you back on to talk about your discovery, the De Soto. You want to leave a little teaser for that?
Well, I mean, do you want to show anything? I don't know.
I'm
Yeah.
not in a huge
So
hurry. Yeah, we can
okay.
show some stuff.
Well, so the coolest thing, well, I'll just put it this way. So not only have I found the site of the Battle of Mabila, but what I continued to do was then map out what happened
Will
here.
you explain to the audience really quickly what the Battle of Mabila is, if anybody doesn't know, like the history?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to? I've got a video of me explaining it. Do you want me to pull that up?
You found the let's say that again. You found the Battle of Mabila, which people had been debating about for a while, for a long
Oh,
time,
looking for
looking
hundreds of
for.
years. So let's give everybody the Battle of Mabila a quick story. So you've got the man. It really depends, Dave. Do you want me to go deep, or you just want me to set everybody up for next time? Because I've got maps and all kinds of shit, or I could just tell you the story in 5 minutes. I'll tell you the story.
I'm feeling open to whatever you want to do.
So 1540, right? De Soto is on this march through the southeast. He's got numbers vary, roughly 600 men with him. As you can see, they would have been well outfitted, right?
Uh huh.
You know what? Maybe I could just share the video. I don't, dude. You're supposed to know what you want to do. Let's see if the video
I'm
pulls up.
feeling open. Let's see it.
Let's
I want
see
to
if the
see it.
video
I
pulls
want to see it. I was just trying to be affable, but I do want to see it. So
All right, fine.
if you want to do it,
Yeah, it's all good. Show me if it. Let's find out if it's going to share. Okay, dude. So here, audience, is just myself basically giving you the story of the Battle of Mabila. We're talking about the Hernando de Soto expedition and their trip into the area of Chief Tuscaloosa, which you see in this video I'm sitting in. It's this area, central Alabama. And let's give it a whirl, see where I'm at.
boom.
Hide that.
I can't hear it. Bummer.
Damn. All right, let me go back. The only other way to fix it is, did I click share audio window? This. Try this one more time.
Alrighty.
So we're just going to
There it is. There it goes.
Story. We're going to pick it up right where he crosses the Coosa into this territory with a fateful meeting between the son of Tuscaloosa, also said to be a foot above every other Spaniard there. Let me back up and say what it is I hope we uncover. Besides the fact that we have located Mabila, I have posited, I believe for certain, and we'll see today, document with the drone, the genius of this plan, where they crossed the Alabama River to the native town of Piachia, right? Back up from there was a town in some of the chronicles called Tuscaloosa that was on a peninsula, which Nick will fly his drone over for the first time later today. Now, what I hope you're already seeing, if you've paid attention to the traditional story and the hunt that has been going on for Mabila to nail down the De Soto route, is that these towns are close to each other. Attahachie, where it sits, is, as the crow flies, 9.5 miles to Mabila. What Tuscaloosa did was take this man on a journey all the way down, tricked him, made him think he crossed a river, but it's a fake part of the river that bleeds up into a creek and a lake over to the 40-foot cliffs of Piachia, where they rested, and then marched right up to Mabila. Mabila and Attahachie you can make on foot. I did it unprepared in 4.5 hours. How quickly could they have done it? That's how much he tricked and laid out a plan to ensnare De Soto, beginning with sending his son to meet the De Soto expedition before they left Coosa's territory. The way the chroniclers all agree it happened is Tuscaloosa's son comes in. He is already reportedly of giant stature. We say giant stature because he is described as a foot, roughly, over every other Spaniard there, and he is well proportioned and handsome, to steal the chronicler's words, right? Giant. He comes to De Soto and he
It's true.
says,
They
all
keep
the
saying
fine
well
words
proportioned and
my
handsome.
Father can't wait to serve
They
you, but
didn't
before
want.
you
They were
cross,
trying to convey to everyone back home that they were not describing gigantism, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
where they're all, yeah.
there are two roads. There are two roads that lead to where my father waits. Please send your men down one, back the other. Choose which is safest and most comfortable for you.
Trying to get
Well,
his trust.
De Soto sort of balks. He's encountered nothing but natives that want to really kiss his ass over in Coosa's territory. They were using him to fight battles, you know, little territorial squabbles they had. So he had been in peace, right? That's his mindset. When this big, noble giant comes and says, my father wants you to feel comfortable and feel safe. But now in hindsight, we can see what Tuscaloosa and why he sent his son on this important task was to make sure De Soto trusted them to lead the rest of the way. He was at ease with them. Because now that we know Attahachie and Mabila were so close, we see how much Tuscaloosa had at stake. They were everywhere around here. Absolutely everywhere. This place was huge. He had his territory on the line, so he needed De Soto to trust him. So De Soto listened. He sent the man down, he sent the man back, and they picked the road. And they entered Tuscaloosa's territory. The meeting happened over here at Attahachie. It says Tuscaloosa was up on a mound, covered on a small seat, with roughly 100 of his nobles all around him, plumed to the hilt, painted calm. It said he had a banner behind him. All of the chronicles agree that Soto said he had not encountered banners, war banners, until he got here. Painted yellow and blue on deerskin. Now De Soto and his 600 to 900 men, 350 horses, various pigs, and all of the other attendants and men, from blacksmiths to clerics to hunters to mappers, they come walking into this town, parade fashion. Horses, these natives had never seen horses. It would be much like a UFO landing right here today, Nick. And you and I...
Shout out Nick from Occult Rejects.
He didn't move. He didn't even look at them. Armored men, weapons, banners, horses. He didn't even acknowledge them. Until De Soto came in. De Soto came in. One chronicle says Tuscaloosa stayed seated and waited for De Soto to come. One chronicle says this is where Tuscaloosa stood, and they meted each other. They exchanged words. We'll keep it short. Basically, we'll describe what De Soto had done the whole time, his MO, and what he does here. He would take the chiefs captive by force when he entered their territory, demand slaves, burden bearers to carry everything for his men, demand sex slaves to gratify the needs and requirements of his men, and then they would take all of the corn, camp for 20 days, establish dominance, kidnap the chief, march through the rest of the territory, rinse, repeat when they got to a new territory. So, here they are in this town with this giant man. They lay this on him. They say, we need burden slaves, we need sex slaves. He says, not here. He says, we're near to my main town, right? I want to protect this shit. I've got a satellite town, Mabila. I'll take you there, and there you will have your sex slaves and your slaves. De Soto agrees. They got to find a horse to put this giant man on, and they can't find a horse. All the chronicles agree they cannot find a horse to bear his weight until they find the largest pack, animal. They come, and it can stand the weight of the man. There's still a problem because his feet are touching the ground. That his feet barely able to clear the ground. Describe De Soto as the De Soto chroniclers describe Tuscaloosa as eyes like oxen, 1.5 to 2 feet above every other Spaniard, nearly a foot above every other native. Well proportioned and handsome, more so than any other native they had encountered into this time. And they said that about all the people of this area in Tuscaloosa. In fact, we have a wife that was kidnapped from Mabila. And when she went down to Peru, I believe it was, all of the wives of the captain that had kidnapped her would demand she was sent to them so they could marvel over how charming, right? How well put together and how beautiful she was. And then you have this giant chief of these noble, charming, beautiful people. Many of the descriptions in the De Soto Chronicles, when they're speaking on the encounters with these people, they marvel over how well they conducted themselves, how they listened, how they took every point the Spanish had to make, conferred, returned, and spoke more clearly, they said, than any of the finest diplomats or court members in Europe. They also said when they were at the temple of Cofacheque that what they found there would rival even the Empire of Rome. They marveled over what they found here, and they marveled over this giant man.
We're talking about little pieces of art that were done in stone.
Tuscaloosa, obviously having exhibited to us here now that this plan was in place, takes De Soto and his men to Tuscaloosa on a peninsula, crosses the river, There are 40-foot bluffs on the other side, they say. There's Piaccia. Now, I watched archaeologist Nick, they did a YouTube video where many years ago they all got on a party boat and they went up and down the Alabama River and they were looking for 40-foot bluffs. And they say in that video they could not find a suitable location. Well, I'm going to take you to those 40-foot cliffs and we're going to stand on the river and you're going to ask the same question I asked. How did they not see this place?
We then used Nick's drones to prove this out.
With the LiDAR of the platform mounds and the golf course, which is now, you know, preserving all of these mounds at Piaccia. So they crossed the river there. Again, right there at this location, the river, as wide as it is, seems to feed in from the north, but that's a trick. The river doesn't continue. Way on up, as our drone can hopefully show, it turns small into a creek. You see, so this whole time, De Soto had in him thinking, Tuscaloosa had De Soto thinking that he had left, you know, that territory completely, when all he did was jump a little lake and come north. Almost.
They called De Soto the last mound builder, and there are some accounts that Attahachie, those mounds were new, so he was still building. So, you know, that would have been his pride, you know, his town, and he had this great trick to sort of protect all of the people that would have been there.
Almost on parallel with Attahachie. It was a brilliant plan. Now, the chronicles tell us when they arrived at Mabila, the land had been cleared, meaning all of the brush was being pulled up by the root, flattened, ready for battle. They describe Mabila as containing up to 80 houses.
50 to 80 is the number they give.
Native long houses, essentially one large room, a few little compartments broken off. Now, the chronicles describe these houses as being able to contain 600, the smaller ones, 1,000 to 1,200, the larger ones. They describe this city as just that. The few horses that are able to go inside, they say the reason they couldn't take the horses in is they could not easily navigate the city streets and hence were prey to the arrows of the native. This was a big place. The fortifications, the walls they described were huge. They described ramparts that could hold 8 men every 20 feet or so.
Walls 8 feet thick and shit,
wall. Man. This was a city, a fortified city. De Soto and his men, they were comfortable. I already described they'd encountered so much behavior from the natives just kissing their ass that's what they were expecting here. They had kidnapped another chief. So when they load up to head to Mabila, De Soto heads on ahead. Maybe 100 men, it says, maybe 100 horses, but also all of the slaves, all of the burden bearers. And they carried everything that army had with it. It says many of the soldiers were not even wearing their armor, or their arms. They wanted to dally along this beautiful, beautiful countryside, hunting for squirrel, rabbit, drinking from the creeks. So they stayed behind De Soto and the front vanguard and all of their stuff. Once inside, Tuscaloosa basically removes himself from De Soto. He excuses himself. These two men see through each other somewhat. They definitely don't trust each other. De Soto sees that when he arrives, not only is the land cleared, but he has reports that these houses are stuffed to the gills with soldiers and weapons. The guy that told him that asked him, hey, let's stay out in the field. De Soto is so fucking bold, so full of his ability, as he said, to lance the natives from his horse. Favorite fucking pastime of this dude's. Okay? Now his men have told him, look, they've cleared the soil. These houses, they sent women out when they first arrived, right? And you've already heard how beautiful these women are. They sent the women out to dancing, and the soldiers are just, paying attention to that shit, right? Well, he's got a spy that comes and tells him, guess what? The houses are filled with men and weapons, dude. Come out to the field. De Soto says, I'm sick of sleeping in the field. I'm sick of it. I'm going to sleep in here. See how full of himself he is?
Now Tuscaloosa removes himself, goes to another house where all of his men are around, and according to I guess info they got torturing after the battle, there was a discussion. Do we go ahead and take these men now, this 100 that are in here, and then prepare for the ones that are coming, or is it more honorable to wait? Turns out it didn't matter. There supposedly was a back and forth. I don't know how much of that was spies feeding information, to De Soto just to satiate his, what I'm sure was rage at what had happened. Point being, Tuscaloosa removes himself. Comes dinner time. De Soto demands, and has been always demanding, that these chiefs eat with him. So he's there at the table. He sends a guy. He says, go get Tuscaloosa. Guy knocks on the door. One of the natives answers. He asks for Tuscaloosa. He says, no, it's not coming out. By the way, who the fuck are you to be coming here and using my chief's names without all the proper titles? Shuts the door. 3 times this happens, right? 3 times. Picture De Soto there, waiting, table in front of him, out here in the wild. He knows there's fucking men in every house, and he's demanding the chief come here. That's the scene. After the 3rd time, De Soto's punk ass tells this guy to go ask another one. The guy looks out and he sees a native walking. He grabs the native and he says, hey, go tell your fucking chief to get his ass in here. Food's cold. Right? So the guy basically shirks. Again, he gets the same response. The insolence. Not only do I not respond to you, but for you to put my chief's name in your mouth, right? Same story. Long story short, that native gets cut wide open. Right there on the spot. Down the back, one says. Down the front, the other says. Either way, he's cut wide open. All right? At that point, all of these men that are in these houses that are waiting on this rush. Arrows flying, men out of the houses. De Soto, everybody caught in just a fucking field of men and flint arrows. Essentially pushed out the door.
There was only 2 entrances, east and west.
One east, one west. Only 2 ways in. So there's De Soto. He gets out. One of the chroniclers say that when he took his thick, he had like 3 cloaks on. When he took his cloak off, he had 30-something arrows in him. Depending on the chronicler, depends on the injury, but supposedly barely with his life, he gets rushed out that door. A couple of things happen as soon as he's out that door. There's still a priest and 2 other people trapped inside that are part of his expedition. Everybody else is still fucking lollygagging, right? He's got to get a horse. He gets on his horse. Now there's confusion. Where are these slaves? Where are these burden bearers? And where is all this stuff? Well, all these natives are chained. They're chained right by the door. They didn't go in the door. And all of the belongings of the De Soto expedition were there with them. So in this confusion, while De Soto's sorting out getting a horse, wondering where the fuck the rest of his fellows are, the natives grab those slaves, and they grab all that stuff, and they put it inside the walls. They barricade the walls. They cut the chains off the slaves. Slaves start fighting with them. Meanwhile, all of this stuff is getting dispersed, taken into the houses. There are stories of natives on the walls playing the Spanish war drums, showing them their weapons, just making fun of them, going, we got all your shit. This stuff then gets put in these houses, these 80 large houses with all of these men and these weapons. Soto sees all this. He knows all this by now. He's got his men out here. They start showing up. He gets his horses. What does he order them to do? He orders the men on the horses because they were the only ones that still had on their armor. Okay? All the other armor's inside. He orders them to get off the horses, go take the door. So they do. They go take the door. Everybody's inside. The chronicles then tell us that they try to take the horses in, but realize that in this city, they can't. They can't navigate the streets with these horses because these houses are full of assailants. Right? So De Soto, in his rage, I'm sure at this point, in his confusion, in understanding this trap had gotten him, and in his pride, orders his men to take the town and burn it. Because as the chroniclers say, the injury that was waiting them in that town was far worse than losing whatever they had inside those houses. So they do it. They take the town. Numbers vary depending on chroniclers, but thousands of natives slaughtered. Thousands. Roughly 20 of De Soto's men, right?
Dead, but everyone injured.
There was
I think they said it might have been
pond,
200.
a creek near the site. I can take you, we'll go to it this afternoon, Nick. Right near the X marker tree. They say the battle lasted 9 hours, and they say the men would go to this creek because they had to refresh themselves and wash the blood off from slaughtering these thousands of natives. So much so that the whole creek was red with blood. Right? Still there today. They slaughtered them. They used the horses. They used everything. The natives put on a good show. I think if you want to hear a story about what was on display, not only, you know, with this plan De Soto put in place, but the native bravery, you look to the end of the battle, they basically eradicated all the men, the Spanish invaders. And what was left was the women, and they were up against part of this giant wall, feet thick. Some it's like 9 feet's a number, you know, unbelievable, thick. That's important. They get all the women up against this wall. They start approaching the women, and naturally the women sort of take a defensive posture, and they expect the women to be surrendering. But instead, the women attack. And what the chroniclers say about this encounter with the women was that they were harder to put down than the men. And the stories about the men blew De Soto's mind. When you hear how far these flint arrows went all the way through a horse, all the way through the armor, and clean out the other side, De Soto would have them cut open to study. He couldn't believe the strength and the displays of power he was seeing. So for them to say that the women were harder to take down, you understand that these women saw the town afire, saw the men dead, and they had life no more, and their bodies were the weapons. They said they fought without concern. No weapons, just fucking everything they had. So the Spanish got to put down the women. There's a native boy up on the wall. Last one left. So the Spanish see this, as they say in the Chronicles, bravery. They don't want to kill the kid. Nice of them. They just killed everything he'd known, burned it. But they didn't want to kill the kid. The kid looses his last arrow, sees them encroaching, and he breaks his bow apart, and he takes the string of the bow and ties it around his neck, and there's a tree, they say, growing out of the wall of the town. And he strings himself up around that tree and he jumps off. Hangs himself. Tuscaloosa got away to the north. Now, he didn't escape. In fact, the stories that every single person they asked afterwards told was that they had to force him to leave over and over and over again, but they got him and a few men north. That way that whatever happened here today, there was still a leader in place. His son, they say, died there. Now, this burial mound, Nick, we're going to go look at, this crescent burial mound, but this artifact I'll show you over there on the table marks what I believe is the burial mound of Chief Tuscaloosa's son, placed just north of this X marker tree. When you see the way the creek, thanks to the construction, has been altered and is washing out the back of this crescent-shaped burial mound, you see this artifact washing out that represents this mound, this big X-man marker tree. It's definitely a burial mound, and it's definitely a memorial of Mabila, something they did after the battle. Today, there's a neighborhood being built as we speak, having been built for the past 10 or 15 years, throwing up mansions, you know, Mick mansions is the term. Clearing what are mounds, Nick. I'll take you and show you. It's fucking moundy territory. and pushing all of this metal that was in all of these houses from this 900 to 1100 man squadron who had everything needed. The chroniclers describe it as being the best outfitted expedition to ever set foot in the New World.
Yep.
Huh? Now, every material possession that expedition had burned inside of these 80 longhouses. Metal melted. The rocks that it was stuck on stuck to it. The carbon from the wood inside the blade is still inside. And these developers, knowingly or unknowingly, clearing this land, pushing all of this into this creek, so that when Jason Huffman, also known as Shaman 711 here, goes down there practicing these shamanic connections, because his life is going through the fucking ringer, he starts finding these artifacts, this metal, and all of the power that was in this place where this atrocity took place. But more so than the atrocity, and what we learn by now having mapped this stuff out, is the genius plan that Tuscaloosa put in place. And he stopped him. He stopped De Soto. What do I mean by that? After the battle, De Soto had a 6-day journey to certain resupply in the Gulf of Mexico. Certain resupply, fucking waiting. Now he's sitting here, 30 days, they sit here on this land. Says they go around killing and burning everything. No questions. If it breathes, it's dead. If it stands, it's burned. Now De Soto, all the pearls, everything he had burned. He was empty-handed. And when he went back and found Attahachie, because it burned, when he found Attahachie, he knew what Tuscaloosa had done to him. So he sat and he bubbled in his rage. And they said they used the bodies of the natives. They were cutting them open for the fat to tend to their own wounds. Just death all around. Natives moaning and screaming. When they came across them, boom, dead. They wanted to know they could rest. And they did for 30 days. Then De Soto made a fateful decision. He'd already heard Tuscaloosa went north. He decided to go north. What led him to that? Well, certainly if he got to resupply, his men were going to say, fuck it. Mutiny, they're heading back home, right? Sure, that played probably a part in it. But I think the madness that overtook him in his time here, in his slaughtering these natives, burning everything they had, and realizing that this man Tuscaloosa had done this to him, that he was going to chase him. And he did, to his death. Died over on the Mississippi River. They had to weight his body down and sink it in the river so that they knew the natives couldn't find it. Because of the horrors that man had wrought upon this country, God's country, these people that lived in connection with spirit and with nature, lived in ways today, as we can showcase with some of these mounds and some of these artifacts, that we are just beginning to comprehend today. And we see it finally illustrated here. And when we learn precisely what Tuscaloosa did to overcome De Soto and send that devil to his ruin on the Mississippi River.
There you go. So everything introduced in that video, this is you wanted a teaser. Everything introduced in that video, I then have video and evidence for, and can happily come back and go for you. I'd say the wildest one, if you want to leave somebody with something, let's do this. I talked about a burial mound and an artifact that washed out of it. There's Luna and I gathering here. So this is the mound, and I've got I'll take you to the mound. This is the lidar of the mound that is represented here in this artifact.
Oh, weird.
Washed out of the mound. Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting stuff.
Amazing. Shaman 711 _
Yeah, I believe I had to do that. Let me unshare. And I believe I'm still the original Shaman 711, but I don't know. I couldn't sort it out, so I had to add the underscore.
No worries. And what's coming up next with Philosopher and the what is it? I'm sorry. The Shaman and the Philosopher podcast.
So we're of course with the Institute of Natural Philosophy, of which I'm a board member, along with Sarah and Jacqueline over at Universe Unveiled, and Ricardo. And our interest is independent researchers, not just researchers, communicators, artists, anybody that is into. You see what I do, man. I'm a guy out here doing all this by myself with no funding, right? And
same.
No, you as well, and we're just interested in talking to those type people. What's coming up? We've got a gentleman talking to us about the moon, I know, on the books.
Nice.
A couple of interesting guests that I'm not going to name until we drop them. But we're carrying on our theme of just truly wanting to talk to anybody who these things, echo with them, and they believe. Here's how to say it: anybody that believes they have information that is important for the whole, right? And especially if you're facing, general backlash like we do in these topics, we want to talk to you over the Shaman and the Philosopher.
Yeah, that's what I like about the show. And we have something coming up together that we're going to start doing. We're going to be hosting here in the Multiverse a monthly-ish Mars. It's the Mars, not disclosure. Yeah, Mars disclosure community.
Bringing us full circle. Well done, sir.
Yeah.
This was our soft opening.
Yes, sir. The Mars disclosure community. Shout out to Brian Corey Dobbs, Jean Ward, and then Ricardo's going to be joining us as well. Just a little teaser. Brian told me that he's going to do a demonstration of how they look for, lack of a better word, artifacts on Mars.
Anomalous features.
Anomalous features on Mars. So they're gonna demonstrate how they look at it. So that's gonna be fun.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. So everyone, subscribe to you. What are you on YouTube?
So Shaman 711, yeah, you can find me as that. I think there's a -JH after it, but most people have been successful finding just Shaman 711.
Yeah. Look forward to working with you in the future and meeting up if I head down that way to go camping. So we'll do it. All right, my friend.
Come find me, man. Moundville. You said you wanted to see Moundville. Do you know that they have a campsite on Moundville? You can camp with the Mounds, dude.
I knew that. I've always wanted to go.
Imagine a psilocybin experience at the Mounds where they did the psilocybin experiences.
That's what I'm thinking. I wanted to go to De Soto Falls. How far away is that from me? I'm like near Atlanta.
Oh, you'll be closer than I am. I'm 2.5 hours to De Soto, so you're probably about the same. Well, yeah, because from Atlanta you need to come over and hit it. But you're 3 hours. I mean, no more. I don't know.
I've been like itching to camp. I used to camp like I don't know. I'd get the calling like once a month, and I just go camping somewhere. But since I hurt my back, I haven't. So it's been like 4 years, but I've got all my gear together.
So
I'm ready to just go.
State Park, bro. If you want to do like camping, sure. But let me tell you, they've got a state lodge, right? And it's like not big and grand, but what it is, it's tucked back right where all of this shit is, like these big rocks I'm showing you. And it's like $80 for a standard little room. You walk out your front door and you're in it, and nobody's ever there.
That sounds actually really nice.
It's really nice, dude.
And kind of like a lean into the camping.
It is. It's a lean in. It's a rustic little place. They have a little restaurant on site that's open just a couple hours during the day. I've never been there when there were more than probably 4 rooms filled. But you literally walk out your door and you start filming video of all of these.
Will you show us some shit?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's a day you're available.
Yeah, of course, dude. Man, you're never going to be able to keep me away from that part of the world. Once you go, I think you'll feel it too. It's not just all this cool stuff, it's just a magical place, bro. It really is. You can feel it when you're there.
I think this whole planet is, my man. This whole
Well, it is,
planet
dude. It is.
fucking
In
magical.
my limited traipsing of it, that is in Jason.
It's a weird place, and it sounds like it's super special down there as well. So I'll be visiting for sure, and we'll be working together in the future. And so thank you so much for joining the multiverse, Mr. Jason Shaman Huffman.
God bless you, bro. We're gonna see you soon. Do some Mars disclosure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Subscribe to Dave's Multiverse on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble today.